information that has to be labeled on foods. In all cases, obviously, the food label has to bear the name of the food, but also an ingredient list. The allergens have to be highlighted. In certain cases, also the level of certain ingredients has to be specified. The net quantity of the food has to be specified also. In most of the cases, there is a need for minimum durability date. It is the best before date, but this date has to be replaced by a use by date, which is more a formal recommendation when there is a microbiological risk. There is also the need to specify the name of the business operator, which put the food on the market. And what is new with this legislation is the nutrition declaration. The nutrition declaration was not mandatory before, unless a nutrition or a health claim was made. So it is one of the big novelty of this legislation. When it is the case, the food label has to specify that the food was defrosted. For meat and fishery products, when proteins are added, it has to be specified as well as the origin of this protein. The water addition has to be also specified above certain thresholds. And when it is reconstituted meat or fish, this has also to be specified. This is also something new. I continue with some mandatory particulars that corresponds to specific cases. The protective atmosphere has to be labeled. Warning statements about high caffeine, the presence of artificial sweeteners, but also a warning statement for polyols. And then we come to something of better interest for you about the oils and fats. The degree of hydrogenation has to be specified with the words fully hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. And something new is in this legislation, the origin of the oil. So what does that mean? That means that this kind of label, this kind of ingredient list will not be sufficient when this legislation will have to be applied. The type, the origin of the vegetable oil will have to be specified. So that means that we will have more something like on this example. Into the parentheses you see a list of the different origins of oils that are used in the product. At the request of the consumer, one of the most recurring criticism regarding food label was the size of the writing, the fact that consumers were not able to read the food label. So we have now a minimum font size that will have to be used on food labels. The other important feature of this legislation are around the notion of origin. Before its revision, the legislation was only requesting origin labeling when its omission would mislead the consumer. Now we have new rules that will require the indication of the origin of the main ingredient when you have a food that is claiming an origin and the main ingredient is coming from a different origin. Something, an interesting example we have around this case is the Italian tomato paste or the passata, which was made with tomato from China. If voluntarily the origin of the tomato sauce is claimed, then the origin of the tomato will have to be specified. The mandatory origin labeling was concerning meat only limited to beef, and with this legislation it was enlarged to other types of meat. There are also reports to be produced about the possible application of mandatory origins to an entire series of different foods. But no decision taken around that. I will finish now with so the other important change to this legislation, which is the mandatory nutrition declaration. You see here the list of mandatory particulars that will have to be labeled. Concerning the fat, there will be a need to distinguish the total fat and the saturates. The information will have to be provided per 100 grams of food, but also there will be a possibility to declare it per portion. There is a nutrient that is absent of this list, and that may have, and that can have an important impact on health. That's the trans fat. Concerning the trans fat, no decision was taken yet. There was a debate among the co-legislator, but only the decision to look at it after we will have gathered more data, because we are lacking data on trans fat, not about the impact, the health impact of trans fat, but about the levels of trans fat in European foods today and the level of consumption. Our decision, regarding the trans fat will be taken after we will have a better idea of the exposure of European consumer to trans fat. This decision could be, information, adding trans fat to the list of nutrients that would have to be labeled, but they could be also, they could take the form of restrictions of use. It had happened in some member states or third country. The level of fat, of trans fat, can be regulated in certain food application. Now we'll finish with the front of pack nutrition declaration. The nutrition information will be on a voluntary basis repeated on the front of pack. The information that has to be repeated could be limited to the energy alone, or the energy and the fat, saturates, sugars and salt. And I provide you with two examples of this nutrition labeling. The one on the left is the one being promoted by the food industry and being used for a couple of years already, and the one you have on the right is the one that is promoted by the UK authorities. And you see that it is more interpretative, with levels of nutrients being qualified, both with words, high, medium or low, and colors. So, as I told you, this legislation will have to be applied this year, end of this year, and with the exemption for the nutrition labeling, which will become mandatory only from December 2016. Thank you.